It's the Sports Take Lunch Break brought to you by Office Essentials. I'm your host, Andrew Corns, and we're back with a very special episode. We are honored to welcome our guest, Deanna Price. Deanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. For those who might not be familiar with you, Deanna, and why you're such an exciting person that we are very humbled to have, I'm going to give a quick rundown of your accomplishments so everyone knows, what's so special about this.
Okay.
So, back-to-back NCAA titles in college at Southern Illinois. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, okay?
Yeah.
I went off your Wikipedia page. You hold the American hammer throw record of 256 feet, 8 inches.
Yes.
Okay. You currently have the fourth longest hammer throw of all time worldwide. Mm-hmm. You represented the USA in the 2016 Rio Olympics. Mm-hmm. And you have the gold medal from the 2019 World Championship this summer in Qatar.
Yes.
That's incredible. So I want to let that hold for a minute. You have the gold medal in a competition,
Yes,
which is...
I actually have it here.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. We'll get pictures of that since everyone who's listening probably wishes they could see it. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Does it have weight to it?
Is there... hands down. Here.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Whenever they gave it to me, the next morning I woke up, I was like, why do I have a splitting headache?
First night, did you sleep with it? And,
honestly, I just had it. I was carrying it around the whole entire time. And I just was sitting there and I was just like, I want a medal. I want a medal, guys. It's I'm so excited.
How many Americans have won the gold at the World Championship? Are you the first?
I am the first ever to win the gold in the women's hammer throw. The farthest that we've ever placed before was actually 7th.
That's unbelievable.
So, yeah, thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah,
very exciting.
Yeah, they were, it's kind of amazing because I sit there and I'm like, wow, I'm part of history. That's so cool. And, it's just being able to, like I always said, this medal means so much to me because I finally get to bring it home to my country. So.
And we've got Dad in the room. He doesn't have a microphone, but he is here. Dad, was it an unbelievable experience knowing that your daughter...
Watch on TV. We did go to Rio when she was down there, and it was very exciting.
That's awesome. Very cool. And I've got tons of stuff coming up later, but I'm going to kind of rewind the clock. We're going to go back to the beginning, if you don't mind indulging. Okay, so where exactly did you grow up in St. Louis, for those of you who are listening and aren't familiar with your story?
So I grew up in a little town called Ethlyn, Missouri. But a lot of times I say I'm from Moscow Mills. If people don't know that, then I say Troy. They don't know that, then I say St. Charles, and then I go to St. Louis. So I always say I'm definitely a Midwest girl. I ended up going to Immaculate Conception School from kindergarten to 8th grade, and then I went to Troy Buchanan High from my freshman year to senior year. And then I ended up going to Southern Illinois University for my college education.
So fun fact, Deanna and I actually both went to grade school together.
Yes.
I also went to Immaculate Conception. Do you remember how many kids you had in your class? Because mine was exactly 16.
Mine was 20.
Okay.
It was 20. It was in and out. It was it dropped between 18 to 23.
Yeah. So we're talking small town.
Very small town.
Very small, yeah.
You knew everyone and everything.
Which is good and bad.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Does it feel, it's crazy. You went from that, 20 kids in school to being in Brazil in the Olympics. It's hard to even fathom.
I feel my life, it keeps developing and getting bigger and bigger. And so, starting with 20 kids in my class. But what's crazy is I have such great personal connections with those 20. Your sister is one of them, Caitlin, and then, Janie Burkamper, Bethany Reller, Olivia Norman. I was Chelsea Westhoff. There's so many that I still keep in contact with to today. But to me, it's just, I have more connections with Immaculate Conception, kids versus, Troy.
Sure.
And so, because it was just Troy Buchanan High, I went from a school of only about 100 and something kids to Troy Buchanan High, which was 2,000 and something. Every time I go there, I go and I see the teachers because
do you really?
I do.
Are most of them still there?
Yeah, a lot of them, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Dildine, Coach Richardson. I was Coach Lovell. I was I get to go and I do my rounds of seeing my teachers and stuff because I love them.
I have a note I was going to mention later, but while you're on talking about Troy, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they have a watch party at the high school for your Olympic competition?
Yes. My friend Caitlin, she ended up, contacting a couple people, and she ended up getting Troy Buchanan to actually pull down a couple screens, and they actually had it displaying. They had, I'm trying to remember remember how many people showed up. I think it was over like 300 people
Wow.
showed up to watch. And it was the coolest thing because I remember like they're cheering, they're all excited. But what they didn't know is that it was, you got 6 throws. So after 3, they're like, oh, she's dead. It was like, no. But I was like, it was really cool. And to have my community band back together for that was, yeah, extraordinary.
So next question for you. Any siblings?
I have 2 older brothers. I have Marcus, and then I have Steven. We're all 3 years apart, and we're all born in June. June 7th, June 8th, and June 30th. So, yeah.
And do your 2 brothers still live in the area?
Yeah, they do. Marcus lives in Troy, and then Steven right now is actually looking to buy a home, I believe, in Troy as well. So, you know, I'm very close with both my brothers. I'm very, very close with my the middle child, Steven. He's always been my big protector. You know, Marcus was a little bit older, so he was like, yeah, but you're just gonna do your own thing. Whereas Steven, you know, he was a senior when I was a freshman, and he made sure that I didn't have a boyfriend my whole entire freshman year. So he definitely made sure that, you know, he if I was gonna do something, I was gonna do it right. And I was going to be a good kid. And he was like, no one was going to mess with me. You know, it was like, I have quite a few funny stories about him. But yeah.
How do older brothers feel about younger sister being an Olympian? I mean, I'm sure they're very proud of your accomplishments.
They are very proud, but they always like to kind of, you know, mess with me a little bit. They're like, I see how you are, mom and dad's favorite. And I'm like, don't say that. That's not nice. But no, they're really funny, and they're very supportive. They're actually one of the reasons why I am the way I am, because, you know, they had me riding my bike at 3 years old without training wheels, you know, drive.
So they threw you to the wolves right away.
Literally, it was sink or swim with 2 older brothers, you know, but it was great. You know, they really developed me into who I am. You know, it was, you know, between baseball, soccer, basketball, whatever they were doing, I was wanting to do it as well. And, you know, I remember they would always have like little medals or pins, and I didn't get any of those until I went to high school. You know, like my team was always like second runner up. They're so freaking close, and we would never get it. And I just remember seeing them, and they would come with these medals and their little trophies, and I would get so jealous. And they would, you know, sometimes in the morning they would open, like I'd open up my door, and there would be like, they'd put their medals and stuff by my door, like, ha ha. So
have you flaunted yours now and then?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, you know, I think whenever I went to high school, I ended up getting, I think it was like 250 medals from track and field and softball and basketball. And finally I was like, ha ha! So
you giving them their comeuppance.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's funny.
But honestly, they've always kept me very humble and kind. They're great brothers, and, you know, they really taught me, you know, what to value in life and how I should live mine. So yeah, it's been great. I absolutely love my family.
So what got you into hammer throw? A lot of people ask that question. Like, it's not like a
it's not a typical
it's
sport.
not the glamorous sport of like a baseball or a basketball.
Yeah.
So,
well, it started out when I went to Troy. My brother Steven had this friend named Erin Cooper, and she was on the track team. And I joined track because I wanted to run the 800 like my mom did, because she held the Troy Buchanan record at the time. And then I think a couple years prior, before I came to school there, it got broke. So mom wanted me to come back and retake it. And so I was like, cool, awesome. I only weighed like 140 pounds. I was like, and I'm in great shape from softball, basketball. I'm going to give this track thing a go. And I remember showing up, and Erin Cooper's like, oh, you're Stephen Price's little sister, right? I was like, yeah. And she's like, you're going to be a thrower. And I'm like, wait, isn't that for the unathletic kids? So,
that was your initial reaction?
Like, yeah, because a lot of times, like, if you couldn't run or if you couldn't do that, they would ship you over to the throws. And I was like...
So you were almost offended by it initially.
Well, I was just kind of like, I feel like I should be running. I was like, but, you know, I do softball. I'll give this throwing thing a go. Why not? So she brought me over, and her dad was actually a volunteer coach there, Mr. Cooper. And he was like, here's a discus, pick it up and throw it. I just picked it up. First time I checked, it went like 68 feet. They're just like, holy crap. And, you know, I actually even tried to like leave the throwing to go back to do the 800. And the coach, his name was Coach Thomas, was like, no, Deanna, you're going to be a thrower. You're going to be really good at this. Like,
so they instantly recognized you had a talent for it that you weren't aware of.
Yeah. So they were like, this is something that you're going to be good at. Let's just give it a go. So, it was crazy because I remember going back home to my mom. I was like, you know what? This is something I get to do just for fun. I'm very competitive in softball and basketball and volleyball. Track's going to be something that's just going to keep me in shape and that I get to enjoy to do. Well, I made it to state my freshman year. So I was like, it went 0 to 100 real fast. I'm very competitive. I don't like losing. So I just remember, being introduced into that. And then by the end of that season, Mr. Cooper was like, hey, come to my house. I want to show you something. And I remember thinking, I'm like, that's weird. I'm not going to go to your house. Like, what? Like, that's weird. Like, stranger danger, And he was pretty persistent. And so finally, he got a hold of my mom and dad, was like, hey, let's come to my house. And I remember driving down these woods, and it has like the big canopy, and it's dark, and I'm like, and we couldn't find their house because it's in the corner, and the GPS was taking us the wrong direction. And finally, whenever we got down their road, I look over, he seriously had a concrete slab and an open field. And I was like, this guy is crazy. He has a hammer throwing area in his front. Yeah. And well, at the time I was just like, wow, he literally has shot and discus there. Cool. And he comes out with the hammer, which is an 8.8 pound ball on a 3'11" wire. And he hands it to me and he goes, all right, throw this. And I'm like, I don't know how to throw this thing. What are you talking about? So I get there and he's like, well, wind it around your head and throw it. So I'm winding it around my head. And after the second wind, it comes around and hits me right in the forehead. And I just sat there. I grabbed it. I dropped it down. I said, thank you. I appreciate this, but I'm going to go play softball. Like, I'm not doing this. And,
as you probably have a concussion at that point.
Yeah. And finally, again, he was very persistent and he kept at me. So altogether from the end of my freshman year to my senior year, I had about 3 months of hammer training. And I went from, starting to 181 feet. And it just kind of took off a little bit. But I was mostly focused on just shot and discus because that's what the events was in high school. And, but he told me, he's like, your talent's in the hammer. He's like, this is something that you're going to be really good at one day. And, that's kind of where it all began.
Have you kept up with shot put or any discus, or
I
do you
did.
Strictly do hammer throw?
Now I strictly only do hammer after college. So in college I did shot, discus, javelin, weight, hammer. I did all the throwing events to score as many points as I could for my university. So we could try and win conference and stuff like that. And then after I went pro, I guess it's not really pro if you're not getting paid. So I call it post-collegiate. Okay. I was like, I guess now that I'm actually like world champion stuff, now I'm kind of more into the pro area, but definitely post-collegiate at that time. And I was focusing just primarily on the hammer throw.
So you'd referenced your first throw, which I actually saw that story in a paper, which I thought was hilarious. Is hammer throw a sport where injuries are common? Like, have you had a bunch of injuries over your career stemming from it?
So from hammer throwing, any sport that you do, you're going to have risk of getting hurt. With hammer, it's definitely like a balance and a dance. But I primarily actually got more hurt in like shot and discus. Shot put, I absolutely hated that. But I did it because I was actually pretty good. I was throwing, 55 feet. I was winning conference. I was going to regionals and nationals in it. But, I remember like I dislocated my arm in the shot put. I, blew out my knee throwing the shot put. And it just seemed like everything that I did, the hammer kind of finished it off. So I would hurt it. And then with the hammer, if your body's not in tune, you're doing a heel toe rotation and 4 spins in a 7 diameter ring, and you're trying to throw it at a speed of 60 miles per hour. And I was like, when your body is out of whack, it's gonna take it's like a weak link in a chain. It's gonna find it, it's gonna hurt it and progress it. So you have to make sure that your body, you're really stretching, making sure that you're fully good and aware and everything. The primary injury that I've had with hammer was one time my freshman year. I was throwing a heavy ball and I put a lot of force on it and it started picking me off the ground. Versus what you're naturally supposed to do is just let it go to the field. I try to fight it. I try to bring it back down into the orbit. Well, with doing that, it picked me off the ground and it slammed me back down and I broke my arm.
Like you literally caught air.
Literally caught air. I was like, if you look up hammer throwing fails, you will see what I am talking about because it is very, very bad. And literally my shoulder blade just snapped in two.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, they said the only time like your scapula breaks like that is in severe car accidents. They're like, we've never seen that.
And how long a recovery is that? Months?
I'm actually like pretty good at healing. So I was back throwing in about a month. You know, they just had to strap it down, make sure that there was no movement. But what I was doing, it was funny. They would strap down the right arm, but they had me doing like left arm turns. So, so you know, they're like, you know, too bad, so sad. We're going to throw and you're going to keep throwing. And I was like, not a problem. You know, for me, you know, I love sports. So if I can find ways around your injuries, that's how you become successful. It's like if you're hurt, you learn to adapt. You know, a lot of times your body's telling you something that maybe you need to be focusing on fixing something else. So like when I blew my knee out, though, in the shot put, I tore my MCL, stretched out my ACL and PCL. And it was my left leg, which that's your grind leg. And whenever I kept turning and turning, I would have about 2 to 3 good throws. And then after that, my leg would just collapse. So basically, like, the hammer kind of just finished it off. And I remember, you know, with that, it was like, okay, clearly, you know, I need to work on this. I'm not driving that right leg appropriately to take the weight off that left. So then, you know, I started doing, you know, side squats, try to strengthen it. And it was just different things, different injuries. You know, you can find different ways to make yourself work at that sport. You know, something hurts, you know, you can take a little bit of time off, but it's, you know, if you want to get to that elite level, you got to find different ways to work around it.
Do you find there's any misconceptions to the hammer throw? As somebody like me who's kind of ignorant to the sport, I just don't know it very well. I think the natural thought is it's all based in power. But when you actually watch somebody do the hammer throw, there's so much finesse in the lower half of your body. Like you said, the ring that you're in is so small.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's so much footwork that's involved that people aren't really aware of.
It is. I always say it's absolutely beautiful. It's a dance between power and technique. It is both. Like I always say, it's just a beautiful movement altogether. If you watch it and you get to see, because you're in this ring, the cage is closed to the size of probably 2 door frames, and you have to spin 4 heel-toe rotations in a 7 diameter ring and going 60 miles per hour and hitting a force and stopping the momentum and smacking it through that opening and landing between 2 sector lines. It's just something, you know, and the ball, you know, a lot of times when you hear 8.8 pounds, you're not thinking like really how heavy that is.
Sure.
But that's about the size of a newborn baby or the size of a cast iron skillet. You know, I'm throwing that 256 feet, which is about, I believe, to the, if I'm throwing from the end zone all the way to, I believe, the other side 15-yard line.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was looking at, it's funny you brought that. I had another stat that 256 feet 8 inches is longer than the length of a hockey rink.
Yeah.
For people to kind of put in perspective, like,
yeah,
that's a lot. That's a huge distance to throw.
Yeah, because like a lot of times I always think, you know, to kind of get people more into the sport and get them more excited about it, you know, like I bench 350, I squat over 700 pounds, you know, I am extremely strong, but I'm very fast and quick, as you have to have a balance of both. You have to. And one thing that I love about the hammer is you don't have to be a certain size. You can be, I am 5'8", I was like, and I'm 230 pounds. I have competitors who are 5'10", 6 foot, 180 pounds. You know, it's you have to find the perfect body weight that's going to work for you and make you successful in your event. It's just finding what makes you confident and what you feel good about yourself. That is the biggest thing that I love about hammer throwing, is that I can be strong and beautiful at the same time.
That's a very empowering way to put that. I'm so glad you put it much more eloquently than I had written down. So thank you for that. Which leads me to a next question, which is, do you have any role models or inspirations from either a personal standpoint or an athletic standpoint that you've kind of looked at over your life and your career to get you where you're at today?
So like my parents have always been a huge impact in my life. You know, a huge role model, definitely. You know, those memories in your life that take you one to one. I never really had an athlete who was, my role model, but it was always like my mom and dad. My mom was a four-sport athlete. She was great at both, and she was always out there. When I did pitching, she was out there batting. My dad would go out and we would go get gizzards and a sun drop and then drive to the track field, and we throw discuses. He still has a bruise to today, from me accidentally hitting it with the discus. It's just those kind of moments in your life is kind of like, for me, those, they're my role models. I always say I got my arms from my dad, and, I got everything else from mom because I look almost exactly like her. But, those two are my biggest heroes. They've always been there for me. They've always encouraged me. Even when times were tough, mom and dad were always made sure that I was successful in what I did. If I did anything, I did it 100%. They were always there. If they couldn't make it to a game, they made sure that they were, call me directly right after, let me know how it went. And if I wasn't happy with my performance, they both were out there and they were like, let's go to the field and let's take some more hits. Let's go and take a couple more throws. If you weren't happy with what you don't walk away from a situation. You make sure that you make it a good ending, impact on your day and your life. I was like, that's why anytime I feel like that's why I'm so successful is because my parents, and they made sure that they ingrained in me that, bad things are going to happen in your life. It's overcoming them with, excitement and joy and turning it around for that day. You can always have one good moment, one good throw that can make your day better. And, if your day isn't going well, try to make someone else's better, because that's going to, it's just, you be infectious to other people. And that's kind of what I've always carried around with life is, my parents are my heroes.
And you got to give them the ultimate gift, I imagine, taking them to Rio with you in 2016.
That was the best ever because, at the time, my mom and dad both, when they lost their jobs in 2008, it was really, really hard because, and they did an amazing job because both of them, they never let us see them struggle. They made sure, we had food on the table. They made sure that, if they had disagreements or anything like that, they took it to the other room. They kept us very, very safe in a great, loving home environment. And in 2016, when I made the Olympic team, mom just got a new job. Dad has been working probably for a good year back at his job as being a carpenter. And it was great. And, that recession really sucked. But I remember when I made the Olympic team, they quoted my mom and dad $20,000 for them to go to Rio. And that really sucked because I knew that we weren't able to afford that. There's no way. And I would not ever want my mom and dad, to take a mortgage out on their house or, a loan that they'd have to pay back. So I remember I reached out to the community and I set up a GoFundMe for my mom and dad.
Wow.
And they raised $18,000 in 11 days.
Oh my goodness.
And my mom and dad came, sorry, it's tearing up because I don't think people understand how much it means to me to have my family there. I was so nervous and I was so scared because that was, my first real time, big time throw. World Championships is huge, but, the Olympics is a whole nother ballgame.
And to feel kind of on your own, potentially.
As like different country, you're scared. You have to stay in the Olympic Village. And I remember when I'm warming up, I had two first bad warm-ups. And you only get 2 throws for warm-ups. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so, like, what am I going to do? And all I remember is I started hearing my mom's voice. And all I hear is, Deanna! And I look up and I see her running around the arena with the American flag, shaking it. And I was like, okay, there's my mother. I was like, it just was a piece of home for me that I was like, it's just like any other meet. There they are. And to me, that made the biggest difference because I had my community, I had my family, I had that, I could just feel that overwhelming sense of love and encouragement. And whenever I got in there, and that's why me and Amber Campbell were the first ever Americans to make the Olympic hammer final. It was the first ever. And, she got 6th, I got 8th, and it was just, It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
And sure, you didn't win a medal, but 8th in the world is like, how do you even fathom that?
Yeah.
You're like, there's only 7 people on the planet that are better than you.
Yeah, exactly. It was just one of those moments. I remember I was just like, wow. And I remember just thinking, I was like, this is great. But I was like, next time, I was like, we're going to medal and we're going to bring it home. I was like, because like I always say, I am very, very big on every time I step in the ring, it's not for me, it's for we. Because no one person has got to where they are by themselves. You can try and say it, you can try and sell it up the river, but no, somebody in your life has impacted you in a positive way to lead you to where you are today. And to me, I have so many people. I always ask myself 3 questions. Who am I doing it for? What's the purpose and why? And I ask myself that every single day because when I can't answer those questions, it's time for me to retire from track and field. Because my who's are why I'm doing this. It's the purpose to impact other people's lives to make it better. That's one thing I love about track and field. That's one thing that I love about, the platform that it gives me is that I have a chance to talk to kids. I have a chance to tell people my story, and maybe if I can just impact one person's life for the better, that's the reason why I'm doing it. And I have so many who's and so many people that I love that, it pushes me every day to be better, not for me, but for we.
That's incredible. That's very touching. A couple other notes I have is hammer throw has been actually one of the longest running sports in the Olympics. It dates back to 1900 on the men's side. However, the women's hammer throw has only existed in an Olympic format since 2000. So did you find that, you're kind of on the cusp of the start of this sport, really, and in the grand scheme of things, was it hard that you didn't really have a ton of athletic role models you could look to who had like long-term success in the hammer throw? Like, did you kind of have to look at your peers?
You had to look more like for me, whenever I started hammer throwing, I was practicing with Geneva McCall, I guess now Geneva Stevens, and then Gwen Berry. And they both were like 70-meter girls. They're fantastic. Those were my training partners when I started. So I had like these women who were powerful, strong, and Gwen is like 180 pounds and like the shape of an hourglass, and I was like, I'm gonna look like her. And then I found out there's a thing called genetics. It doesn't exactly work that way, but they were always kind of my inspiration, and they always pushed me to be better because I was like, man, I know I can throw far. And then I'd watch them and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to try and throw some extra speed on this ball. Maybe I'll try to go a little bit faster. And then, the different things kind of developed and over time. And, I kept yanking the ball really hard. And then I realized, you know what? I'm just going to go 3 fingers. If I throw with only 3 fingers, maybe that'll work, which it worked great because then I wasn't yanking on it. I wasn't yanking out of its orbit. And my wingspan's only 5'6". I'm 5'8". And so, and my pinky is a lot smaller. So I was like, so having the 3 finger kind of gave me like an extra, couple inches. It's just, with it starting out in 2000, it's been crazy. It's been a lot of fun though, because so many of us, it's kind of like a friendship. When I started out, they were like, American, that's kind of, because a lot of times, like, we can be rude. So a little bit, I guess, ignorant in ways, especially, expecting people to know English and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So a lot of times I'll come up and be like, I'm so sorry that I don't speak your language. Do you happen to speak English? Because I think you're great. And, and that's how I always start out, meeting new people or just being like, hi, how are you? And, or I get the, translator app on my phone and I try to like ask them questions like, how was your day? Or, I love your outfit. It looks great. I love those leggings. It just, honestly, ever since we started doing that, it's kind of like this bond that you have with the girls. Some of my great friends, like Joanna is from Poland. I love Joanna. She placed second this year at Worlds. She's the one who gave me the big hug. I absolutely love Joanna. And then Alexandria from France is great. And Malwina from Poland's wonderful. You know, it's having that personal relationship because with our sport being so young and, you know, we're trying to reach those new level and new distances. You know, right now, Anita from Poland is the only one who has the farthest distance of 82.98. So we're trying to now get over those 80-meter marks, trying to get better. We're all trying to make our name for our country to bring honor back. And for me, it's been a heck of a journey because now, like, us women have been very empowering each other. We're you know, when someone throws a PR, I'm not going to sit there and be upset and be like, ugh. But no, I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you because
you're pioneers.
Yeah, I was like, the farther and farther that we throw, the more recognition that we're going to be getting, the more visual cues, and the more chances that we get to show that, you know, women can be strong and beautiful. You can have both sides of that coin. And that's one thing that, you know, we all love about our sport is, you know, we get to be, you know, just who we are. And we get to show people that it's okay to be different. It's okay not to be a size 2. And it's, you know, you can be whatever you want to be.
You had referenced Anita from Poland. Her numbers are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Is she sort of the benchmark for women's hammer throw?
Yeah. She, the first time I met her was in 2015. That was like my first Worlds team in Beijing, China. And I remember sitting down and Anita sat next to me. And I remember reaching over, touching her leg, and then bringing my arm back. And she looked at me like I was absolutely insane.
You knew who she was at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Because I was sitting there, I was like, oh, my God, this woman has thrown over 80 meters. I'm going to touch her. Because at the time, I'm only throwing 71 meters. And I was like, for her to throw 10 meters farther than me, like, that was mind-blowing.
It's a sport of inches, right? So that's a huge distance.
Huge difference. And I remember just doing that. She just kind of looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. But I was like, and I just looked at her. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just had to touch you. I was like, how many chances do you get to touch a world record holder?
Sure.
And, you know, and she's been really, she's definitely the start of it. She started pretty young, starting the hammer throw. A lot of times in the U.S., we don't start till college. But now it's getting a little bit more recognition that I'm seeing girls actually starting younger, which is great because the more you do it, the more technique that you're going to build. And so it definitely is a huge advantage. And, you know, she is a fantastic athlete, Anita is. And, you know, like I told her, I was like, I hope one day I could give you a run for your money. I hope one day, you know. And it's kind of crazy because I think it was last year was the first time that I ever beat her.
Oh, wow.
Was at the Continental Cup. And she was the favorite. And it was crazy because at that meet, it was very, very interesting because you had 2 girls from Team America, 2 girls from Team Asia, 2 girls from Team Africa, 2 girls from Team Europe. And your first 3 throws, you're competing against your Team America girl. And whoever threw the farthest out of your 2 goes to the next round. And so then they only have 4 from each, I guess, continent. Mm-hmm. And then against those 4, you know, they take that next throw, they take 2 out. And then it's only you versus, and so it was me and Anita.
In the final? Or in
the final. And so I was like, but I beat her on every throw, which was crazy to me because I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, just breathe, Deanna. And I remember on the last throw I went, I think it was like 75, 76. It was the farthest that I've ever thrown internationally. And she went 73. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, I just beat Anita. Like, holy smokes. And what was really cool is that she came up and she gave me a hug. And she's like, you did a great job.
That's awesome.
So I was like, ah. And if you ever saw the photo, I hug her and I'm just like, and I think it was Alexandria, because she was on Team Europe as well. And she was like, she came out to hug me. I was like, did you see that? And she's like, yeah, I saw.
Do you think knowing that you were matched up one-on-one with Anita maybe pushed you to like give your like, you're like, I gotta go.
Oh, I knew from like deep down in my gut that I had to show up. If you don't show up, you know, it's definitely, when you're competing against her, you have to push the whole entire time. You have to. If you don't, if you have a foul, you give breathing room. So you have to make sure that every throw you're throwing at a high rate, because if not, they're going to come up and they're going to get you. That's just the name of the game. That's why you have 6 throws. You have 3 throws to make it to the final, and then you have another 3 to clinch it. So like I always say, get in there and you do your job. You get in there and you do it. You just have to go all out and try and get that farthest mark every single time.
Are your other competitors around the ring? Are you watching each other? Is there like some sort of like, is there like a mind game that you can play?
It's really interesting. A lot of times, like me, I like to watch every single person throw because I don't want to miss it. If someone's going to throw something, I want to be there and I want to see it, because then to me, I'm like, all right, it's game time. Let's go. So it was really interesting because at Worlds, everyone's like, their face is back toward, like, they're not looking to the ring. Because a lot of times, if you hear or you watch someone else and they do it wrong, a lot of times you'll hear that, tap, tap. And then like it's supposed to sound like a 1, 2, 3. And sometimes it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're just like, a lot of times if you hear it, sometimes you do it. It's just kind of how that works. But for me, I just like to sit there and I like to watch. I like to just sit there and I'm like, I'm going after this. I'm watching every single throw because I don't want to miss a thing. I want to make sure that, I'm doing my job and I'm going to do this right. And, that's one thing that I love about it is I sit there and I'm like, let's go. Let's do it.
So you get excited seeing the others throw. It kind of gets your adrenaline up.
Oh, yeah. Like, they're my friends. And, other athletes have different ways. Me, when I come in, I'm known as the international hugger from my friends. Because I'll be like, hey, guys. And I'll be hugging them. And they're like, hi, Deanna. They're like, okay, just let you know. I'm getting in my zone. I'm like, okay. And I'll be sitting there and they're all serious. And I'll be looking at them like,
So you don't have to have get into like a zone or anything.
Yeah, not till I won't start getting into it till after the first call room. So on big meets and stuff like that, they'll take you into call rooms, call room 1 and then call room 2. And then after call room 2, you go out to the field. So in call room 1, I'm like, it's like a reunion. Hey guys, how you doing? Then I hit call room 2. I was like, it's me warming up, me getting ready, me focusing. They always kind of laugh at me because they're like, you literally go from like this cute, adorable, bubbly person to like death gone 5. It's like it goes from one extreme to the next. They're like, how do you do that? I was like, I said this is one thing that I learned from my mom, because she always said you always be a good, kind, caring person, but when you step in the ring or you get ready to bat or you're getting for a rebound, it's that flip of the switch of being aggressive, and you have that moment in your life that you need to compete at 100%.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point when I think about like elite level athletes like LeBron James and so many of them. It's once you cross the lines, once you step on the court, whatever it is, often the great athletes know
it's game.
It's when it's time to focus. So that's a really interesting perspective. Something else I want to talk about is you're married to your coach / trainer, which is really, I'm sure there's so much to that.
Oh, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So first question, did you meet him before he was your coach trainer?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah, I did. He was actually the first time I met him. I was a junior in high school and he was I think it was a sophomore in college. And that was the first time we kind of started dating. I went to a meet to watch one of my friends throw at SIU. And Coach John came up and was like, hey guys, just let you know, I can't really talk to her much because it was like a dead period. He's like, make sure you go and introduce yourself to Deanna. She's coming in. She's a thrower. She's throwing really well. I'd love you guys just to kind of get a feel out for her. So go say hi. And I came in with my mom and dad, and JC instinctively he got up and just darted towards me. And I remember we sat there and we talked for like 2 hours, just chatting, talking about SIU, talking about throwing, talking about different things that we liked. And at the time I had a boyfriend, I think it was for like 6 months. He had a girlfriend, I think it was for, like 5 months. And, I remember on my way home, I got on the phone call and I broke up with my boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
And because we just had this really good connection.
Sure.
And thought he was really nice, really sweet, big guy, I think he's 6'4". At the time, he was about 310 pounds. Big boy. So I just remember, like, at the time I weighed only like 145 pounds. I'm like, oh my God, he can squish me. But he was super nice and super kind, and he was really good, and he was so intense when he threw, and I thought it was really something amazing. And so we dated a couple months, and then it just 3.5 hours apart. It just didn't really work. So it's kind of my bad because I kind of ghosted him a little bit. And it kind of ended things. And then I started dating another guy. He started dating another girl. And I came on a visit to SIU, and he was like, she's not coming here because of me. Like, I know it. Like, it didn't work out with us. And he completely ignored me. So I was like, so the first thing I did when I saw him, though, was I just ran up and I gave him a hug because I'm like, it's good to see you. And he's like, that completely blew my mind. He's like, I just thought you were going to ignore me. He's like, that was my plan. It's just avoid. And so I gave him a huge hug. And I think it was a couple months later is when I decided to choose track and field over softball. And I wanted to be a Saluki. And he was like, I can't believe that she's coming here. That's crazy. And whenever I came in August, he broke up with his girlfriend in, October. I broke up with my boyfriend in November, probably like 2 weeks apart. We gave it a good grace period. Like, we dated other people, and like, while also dating each other because we wanted to make sure, we gave our respective others at the time, I guess, respect. Sure. And but we started dating in May of 2015. And I remember sitting there, and it was a couple years ago. I asked him, I was like, you probably don't even remember me, like, the first time you met me. He's like, you had your hair in a ponytail, you had silver hoops, you had a long sleeve shirt, red and black, with black jeans and white shoes.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I was
so he
wow.
knew, yeah.
And he's like, from that moment, he goes, I knew that I wanted to be with you. And yeah.
So was it a natural progression to him being involved on the coaching training side?
Yeah. So whenever I came in, I was a freshman when he was a senior. So we trained with each other, and he ended up getting really sick. He ended up actually getting a Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which is actually like a tick disease. So he ended up getting that. They had to redshirt him. And so we trained together for 2 years as both athletes. And then after that, he graduated and became a volunteer coach at the university. And he was training post-collegiately to get ready for 2016 as well. And I remember it was 2015. So like, he kind of always helped me throughout. Like, he always was like, I was one who was like, let's go on walks, let's go hiking. And he's like, no, we have a heavy lift tomorrow. Or no, we have practice in a couple hours. Let's just reel that back, Deanna. He was one of those who introduced me into that extra 5%, making sure that what I was doing before practice, eating, sleeping, making sure, I was taking my vitamins, he made sure that every single thing that I was doing, that affects how your practice is going to go or how you're going to compete. It was that extra 5%. And he made, it was just a gradual thing. Like, he wasn't like, you need to do this, X, Y, and Z. It was, just very helpful. How do you want to get better? This is how I can help you. And he started really helping with my technique in 2014. And, and that was right after I blew out my knee. And he started really like focusing, okay, let's work on your turns, let's work on your turns, let's work on your turns. And so at that time, we were together for going on 3 years. And it was 2015 indoor season. And just coming back from an injury, I was out for 8 months. And he looked at me, and I made it to nationals. And I was ranked 8th going in, 8th or 7th, one of those. And he goes, and I just could not, I was having a really hard time trying to throw this weight. And he goes, all right, if you win, I'll propose to you. I threw a 2-meter PR in the weight, which is huge. That's like 6 feet.
So you had motivation.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was like, she was sandbagging that. He's like, there is no way. And I mean, I'm just hitting PR. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm one of those people, if you put something on the line, I'm going after it. And I go to nationals in the indoors, and I was in the lead up to the third round throw. And the two girls who were throwing like 2 meters farther than my personal best was, they weren't throwing well. They kept hitting the cage. I just kept pumping out PRs. And he's sitting there, he's like, and Coach John, my old throws coach at the time, goes, dude, you're going to have to pay up for this, right? He's like, you can't back out of this.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, how am I going to find $5,000 for an engagement ring? He goes, I'm literally a volunteer coach working at Mackey's Pizza. Like, what am I going to do with this? And he goes, I hate to say it, but I was slightly praying for the other girl to throw farther. Which one of them ended up doing it, and then the other one did. Okay. So I ended up getting third. I was ranked 7th, got third.
So he was probably like...
He was. It was really funny. But like from there, he was just very involved technically. I said, make that bet again for nationals, for outdoors. He goes, no, because I know you now. And I'm glad, I guess he was glad he didn't, because I ended up winning outdoors. And then from there, after I made the team, and I ended up going, I think it was like 72-30 at USA's in 2015. I made the team to go to, NACACs, and so did he. He also made the NACAC team. And then it was World Championships, and then Pan Am's was all in 2015. So I made 3 USA teams that year. And at NACACs, at Pan Am's, it's Pan Am's, my old coach came up to me and he goes, hey, I got to tell you something. And he for some reason, he was like, you can't have your cell phone. Stay off social media, which was really weird, because I was like, okay, oh, well, whatever, here. And I remember it was August, like 25th, 21st. It was, I missed one of my best friend's birthdays, Caitlin Harding. And I was like, oh, so I opened up my laptop and I got on there and I saw something about Coach Connie, but I just, I didn't really read it. I just hurried up, got on there, happy birthday, Caitlin, and I sent it. Geneva came running to the door. This is in Toronto, Canada. And she made the team as well, slams open the door, runs in, goes, what are you doing on the internet? And I'm like, I was messaging her happy birthday. So I was like, man, wow, you guys are really taking this seriously. And so I closed it. And right after Pan Am's, my coach and my parents came as well. And my coach goes, hey, come with me. We're all going to go get something to eat, but I want you to drive with me. And I'm like, okay. And we get in the car and he goes, all right, Deanna, I got to tell you something. I was like, okay. He's like, I'm just letting you know that me and Coach Connie took a job to go to Oxford, Mississippi. You only have 1 year eligibility, and we can't take you with me. But we're taking Geneva, Gwen, and Raven. And I remember just being crushed, because I was like, what am I going to do? Like, who's going to coach me?
Sure.
And my husband, he goes, JC has decided to take the coaching position to coach you. And he gave up his dream of making the Olympic team so I could make mine. And he's just amazing. Honestly, he is just one of those people that every morning I wake up, I can be more thankful that, he's my husband. He honestly, you can pick on me, you can, rub my name through the dirt, but, you don't mess with my husband. Husband and family is where I cross that line. But he's just always been there, and he's always been such a huge support, and he's made me into a better athlete and a better person. He always made sure that, he reminds me a lot of my mom and dad. If you're going to do anything, you're going to go 100% at it. He's like, you're not just going to say you're going to do something and not follow through. And that's one thing I absolutely love about him.
A question I have, and something else that a lot of people were asking me about that I find a really fascinating question, and that is, what is it like being a role model for young girls around the country, around the world? A special story I have is a couple of friends of mine, they don't know you. They'd never heard of you before the World Championships this summer. They were sitting down, they were watching you win the gold, and they both openly started weeping at joy. They were just so moved by the moment. And I'm sure you hear those kind of stories all the time from people who have never met you. How surreal is that, and how cool is that to have that kind of a difference on somebody you've never met before?
Oh, it's amazing. Honestly, the That's why I do it. I do it to kind of let people feel that emotion, to feel that excitement, to be able to impact younger generations to be better. It's simple of just, a lot of people say you have to be a hardcore athlete. You don't have to be. You can be a big sweetheart. Like, that's what I am. I'm a big sweetheart with my heart's always on my sleeve. I cry all the time. It's doing it for another reason. It's doing it for someone else. It's doing it for something bigger than what you are. And that's what makes the sport great, is because I'm not bringing it home just for me. I'm bringing it home for my community, my friends, my family. That little girl who doesn't know what exactly she wants to do, or, is too scared to go in the weight room because boys might call her manly, or that why are you wanting to build muscles? Because you're going to look like a guy. I have those negative people all the time, but I have more positive, and that's what you have to remember is, it's a lot of people want to focus on the negative, but it's letting that, and you surround yourself with positive people. And when you do that, it's amazing, because then you start becoming a light, and you start becoming infectious, and you start that spread. And that's what I love, is that I'm so glad people can see it, and that they can see the joy that I have in the sport, and that the love that I have for my country. We all have different opinions in politics, but it's still our country. It's still our family. Every single person here is united under one nation. And to me, bringing it home for my people means everything, because our country has given so much. So many people have died for the land that we stand on today. And to me, that means everything, that I can finally bring it home and say, because of this freedom, I can do this. And I want to say thank you. And that is one thing I will always hold dear to my heart, is that, we are one nation, and we are all together. And you can't tear us apart, because we're all here. You gotta love what you have, and the family here is everything.
And it shows in the pictures. Every time I see a picture of you, you either have the biggest smile, you can tell there's joy with everything you're doing, or you're some of those iconic pictures of you draped in the flag, just overcome with emotion, I imagine.
Yes.
Just unbelievable stuff to see.
It's honestly, it's one of those things that I just want people to know, that it doesn't matter, what you look like, what race you are, we're all competing to do something great. And that's why I have such respect for other countries as well, because they're trying to do the exact same thing, just bringing honor back to your country, and to say that we did this together. And because when you do it by yourself, and when you get to the top, and when you look around, no one's going to be there. When you sit there and you do it for somebody else, or you do it for we, and you get up to the top, you have hundreds and thousands of people there with you, and you're not ever alone. You always have somebody there, and you always know that, this chance and opportunity, I can help somebody feel better about themselves. I can make someone love who they are. Bad things happen to every single person in this world, but why would you stop when you're hurting? Why not push through to something that's better, and making yourself, if you surround yourself with positive people, every person that you come in contact molds you in a certain way. So negative or positive. But when you have to surround yourself with the positive people, cut away the people who are negative, because it's only going to hurt you in the long run, because them saying something negative it's going to mold you, but surrounding yourself with that light and energy, it's going to refuel you, you're going to refuel them, and then it's going to spread. It's contagious. If you just smile at someone, it is so hard for them not to smile back.
It really is.
Or even just going up, someone having a bad day, you giving them a hug or a card, or, just be like, hey, I heard this happen. I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do to help you? And, it just being open to being a good person. That is the number one thing about what I love about my sport, is I can just be me, and I let people know that love is everywhere, and just be infectious, be energetic, be excited about what you do, and whatever you do in life, ask yourself 3 questions. If you wake up in the morning and you love your job and you love what you're doing and you love the people who are around you, you're doing the right thing.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to get kind of into some stories about Rio and about Qatar and about the future 2020 Olympics coming up. So if you don't mind, we're going to get into that a little bit. So first off, Rio in 2016. We know there was a bunch of watch parties for you, and the whole city was behind you 100%. I remember hearing a lot of stories about Rio before the games took place. There was the Zika virus going on. There were some safety concerns with Brazilian crime and things like that. The dorms weren't in ideal condition from what we heard over here. There's water pollution, air pollution. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yes.
And this is leading up to the games. Did that affect you at all? And then once it came time to getting over there, I'm curious, did all of these things weigh? And what are some of your experiences from Rio?
So when I went to Rio, of course, the Zika, worrying about, crime and stuff like that. It is something they're just trying to prepare you mentally. Yes, the dorms were not ready. The USOC ended up sending our own contractors over to finish our own area because they weren't running. There's toilets on the side. They weren't put in. They were really great that they got our people in to get it finished, to get it ready for us for 2016.
So you did stay in the dorms and everything?
Yeah. So we stayed in there. They gave our USOC had plenty of fresh drinking water for us so we could brush our teeth, make sure everything was all right. So my living situation was good. I was very happy with it. I didn't have any hiccups or anything like that on that end. A lot of people were so scared because of the Zika virus, but it was like winter. They kept fogging everything and everywhere. So to me, I think I saw like one, mosquito, and I grabbed my little, insect spray. I was like, shh, but other than that, I wasn't too terrified about that. I was like, when we got back home, they all had testing kits to make sure that if we contracted anything, that they would let us know. And so we always did blood samples and sent it back. But the craziest thing was the track and field athletes trained at the naval base there in Rio. We didn't train at the Olympic Stadium. So we rented out the naval base. So we bought them like new weights and that kind of stuff. So whenever we left, they got to keep it. So that was kind of like part of our payment. So we went there. They had like a camera cage and everything. But on the way there, the naval base wasn't open yet. So we were just waiting in the bus, just kind of chilling. And I look over and I see this guy, and he's laying in this weird position. And I just remember saying, like, he's so funny. Why is he sleeping like that? And I just remember just staring at him. And I hit JC. I was like, "Do you see this?" And he's like, "Yeah." Like, what's like that's weird.
Just laying on the street.
Just like laying on. It was like next to the water, and it was like, so it was the curb, and then it was like a little bit of land, and then went to sand, and he was just laying on the sand area, like blanket on him, and he's just laying on the blanket in this weird like contorted position, and I was just like, okay. And after about 5 minutes, we're just staring at him. We're like, JC, I don't think he's breathing. And JC's like, I don't think he is either. Next thing you know, a bird comes down, lands on him. The guy was dead. So
wow.
My first dead body was in Rio. So that was great.
And this is before you're competing.
Yes.
Like you're like pretty much fresh landed in Rio.
Oh, yeah. And next thing you know, an ambulance came by, just put him in a black bag, zipped him up, and put him in the ambulance. That was it.
And it's just normal around there, I guess.
That was just normal. Well, it was just, he was a homeless gentleman who passed away. And I was just like, wow, first dead body was in Rio. Awesome. Okay.
You'll remember it forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I will say one thing about the Rio people. A lot of people were terrified of like the stealing and the crime rate there. But I will say that they were some of the most hospitable people I've ever met in my life.
Really?
They're very family oriented. They're very much, if you needed help, like my parents were getting lost in the favela, which is the worst part of Rio. It's very bad height. They said if you ran around the stadium in the favela, you won't make it. So this lady came up to my mom and dad. My grandpa's like I think he was like almost 80 at the time. Mom and dad's there, my grandma's there, and they're like, this lady was like, let me help you. Let me help you get to where you need to go, because I'm not going to leave you here alone. You know, like, people took care of each other, and that's when they know that, you know, it is very high poverty and stuff like that, but they are very good, caring people. You know, they were willing to help, and that it was huge. You know, I would have lost my mind if something would have happened to my parents. So I really wish I could find that person and tell them thank you, because it means everything.
Did you get to venture out at all outside of the Olympic grounds, or were you kind of confined?
We went to the Jesus statue.
Oh, yeah.
We went to that. We saw that, and then that was about it, though. I'm not really a venturous out kind of person. I go there and I kind of I do my job. A lot of people, what I've always learned is there's two types of people that go to the Olympics. You know, the people who are there just because they made it, and then the people who are there to compete. And my coach always told me about that, but I never really believed it until I got there. And I mean, people were out going hanging out,
partying
going
at
to different,
night.
yeah, exactly, doing different things, and I found that very interesting. And
you weren't satisfied just to be there.
yeah, I'm here to do a job.
Yeah.
That's how I've always seen being in athletics. You know, you're not doing it. You do it for fun, yes. But if you're going to do it, you're going to go 100%. You're not going to just be there to, whoo, I'm here. But it was, I absolutely loved it. I ended up getting a really bad allergic reaction 2 days before competition. And my left side of my face slumped over, and my lips swelled up, my eyes swelled up. And I'm not allergic to anything that I know of. And next thing I know, I had to go to our team doctor, and he was like, okay, I'm going to do a therapeutic use exception form. So a thing is called USADA. So it's the United States Drug Anti-Doping Agency. So you have to file a TUE if you're ever going to take anything like prednisone or anything like that, to make sure that if you ever do get drug tested, that it won't come up. So I basically, with this severe allergic reaction, he's like, all right, you need to take these 2 prednisone and these 4 Benadryl, because if you don't, I was like, my father actually has a photo here.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes. It's like a bad Lindsay Lohan injection going on right now. That's
the best way to describe it for anyone listening.
It is not great. I'll have to give you that photo so you can post it. But 2 days before competition, and if you know anything, it's called manipulating your central nervous system. So what you do is, you taper off your throws, you're taking less throws, because then you're going to start peaking out. And what you do, with Benadryl and prednisone, if you take that kind of stuff, it's going to whack your centralness, it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard, and you're not going to throw well. And I remember, I had to take it. I slept for 15 hours. 15 hours. It got down. I was better. I was good. And I remember I was throwing the next day, and I was getting ready for the final, and I was just sitting there. I was like, the ball felt 10 times heavier. And I just had a huge PR with my 10 pound the day before, and I was throwing that 73 meters by 10 pound. And then I couldn't even throw 70, 71 with my 4. It was very hard. It was very, very hard. And I just remember sitting there, and I was like, man, if I was 100%, what could I, that possibility, what could I have done?
Sure. And
so, and those are just all little factors, That's why in Doha, it was amazing, because JC and I actually roomed together. A lot of times we room with different athletes, but he got a room himself, so we stayed in the same room. And it was really funny, because I got the king size bed, and he's on this little tiny cot. He's like, you sleep the best you can. Whatever you need.
Sure, you got to be at maximum.
Yeah, he's like, you good. So every morning I woke up, he was like, here's your vitamin pills. Here's your, BCAAs. He was I ate at a certain time. I drank at a certain time. With it being so hot, I was drinking over I think 1.5 gallons of water a day easily. And with only having 1 kidney, we had to stay ahead of that to make sure that, I wasn't getting dehydrated or any cramping or anything like that happens. So it was pretty amazing.
So I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I actually forgot about that. I remember hearing all the stories about how hot it is in Qatar, and you're there in the summer. I mean, they had to reschedule the World Cup soccer to December, so it's somewhat temperate.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking like
It was
well above
125. 125. But
and that's just like normal temperature, like not even necessarily in the ring where it's probably even hotter.
well, luckily in that stadium, it's a pretty rich country. So they actually had a stadium that was set at 75 to 80 degrees.
Okay.
Like they have these huge AC units that are just blowing all time in an open stadium. I'm sitting there, I'm like, let me know about that electric bill, okay? Right. And but they were very, very good. The only thing is that you couldn't practice there. You practice outside, which is in the heat. So we had to we could only practice from about 5 to 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So we're just throwing and throwing and throwing. And I remember just being drenched, and I could not get dry. Because it was when it started cooling off, that dew point hit hard, and you were just getting like there. You could not get dry, and I had so much stickum spray. I was just spraying all over my hands, trying to just get a grip on this ball. And I mean, it was hard. It was intense, but it was. JC and I really prepared for that because we started training, at noon, 1 o'clock during the day, heat of the day. He's like, you got to get used to the heat. He goes. But there's a fine line of getting used to it and then getting heat exhaustion. So if he started seeing signs of me getting heat exhausted, if my stomach started getting upset, if I, I wasn't sleeping correctly, he would then push practice back or push practice early morning. And he is just so in tune. We definitely learned with experience because he was there with me in 2015 all the way to now. And he definitely knows my signs, knows what I need. It was funny because right after I made qualifying for Doha, I knew immediately I had to go do my lifting real quick to get ready for finals the next day. And he was sitting there and I'm just pacing and I'm pacing. And all I hear from the stadium is, sit down. And I look up and JC's pointing his finger, yelling, go, doing the motion to sit down. And I just drop. And he was just like, you're standing on your feet for the next 20 minutes. And then you have to go through the mix zone. So I had to climb up 4 to 5 flights of stairs all the way to the top of the stadium, all the way back down. And it was very interesting. It was definitely, it was not great. And my calves were like super tight. And I was so terrified to tell him. I was like, oh my God, JC, like my calves are freaking out. And they had a great medical staff and they did some dry needling to like release, because if your calves are tight, you can't turn. So it was really intense. And it's just one of those things that you have to adapt. You don't freak out. You just adapt. You'll figure it out. I was like, you just have to go with the motion and X, Y, and Z will fall into place. You have the reps. You have the ability to do it. It's just crossing those T's and dotting those I's.
I have a couple other questions about Qatar, but before I ask those, you brought up a great point that I'm glad you did about USADA. Obviously, there's a big story in the last couple of weeks about Russia, and they got in trouble for doping violations, and the athletes can't compete there. And again, that's a whole other thing that we as normal people day to day don't really think about. But you have to be so aware of everything you put in your body.
Yes.
For fear that,
one little
ingredient
I do not even eat poppy seed buns because it come up positive.
Yeah. Is it pretty clear?
No, there's
a lot
list.
Of stuff, right?
There's a huge list of what's prohibited and what's not. And a lot of times it's if you take anything, and let's say if you're taking a GNC product, or if you're taking an Advocare product, or you're taking, I don't know what other big, company there is out there, like just regular vitamins. Let's say they made a steroid drug or something that's illegal prior to making this current drug and didn't clean their machines correctly, and there's remnants left in that machine of their next process through, and so you might just be taking melatonin, but it might be laced with something that is illegal. So you have to be very careful about what you take and make sure. If I take anything, I make sure it's tested by a third outside. It's called True Sport. So a lot of times they take the products and they test it outside to make sure it's clean. And they'll be like, okay, this product has been approved. It's nothing illegal in it. It's good. It has that little green check. That's what I go for. If you take a pre-workout with too much caffeine, you'll come up positive. If
Wow.
it's all these different things,
Do you take like a whey protein?
So like
mix?
I do. I take like I do Promazole, which is a pure isolated protein, and it's approved by United States Track and Field, and also Earth Fed Muscle Fuel. I do their products. They're very clean. They're actually track and Olympians who have made it. So it's specifically made for my sport and for weightlifting. It's for Olympian. It's by Olympians, made for Olympians. So it's kind of.
So you're very confident that
yeah,
you know what you're putting in is
but
good.
I always make sure, because if it's just 1 second, and it's the scariest thing, because if it comes up and you're positive, you're tarnished forever.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done.
Are there any female Russian hammer throwers that you know of who have maybe tested positive?
Tatiana Lysenko.
Okay. She was one of the ones who was found guilty of doping.
She was actually has the third farthest throw, but she tested positive. She's now banned from track and field forever.
Is her third farthest throw still
is
active?
still active.
So you have to deal with that every day. That
Yeah.
you could be third if this person.
Yeah, but it's just that it's sad. But drugs is very, even in the United States, we have athletes who are competing who've had bans. They'll be like, oh, my doctor gave that to me. But, part of me is like, it's your due diligence to know what they're giving you. Because, like, Gwen Berry, she has severe asthma, and she had to be on an inhaler, and her doctor gave it to her, and she had a prescription. She filed for a therapeutic use exception form, and it was denied. And they're like, no, you can take these inhalers instead. She never switched it. And she ended up putting it on her form that she was taking that inhaler, even though she never tested positive. But since she declared that she was taking that product, she was banned for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And then her ban led up the day before Olympic trials. And then she made the Olympic team, and the headline was, Gwen Berry makes Olympic, but failed drug test. Or ban, and then it was just, your name's tarnished. It's one of those things, and people don't really, it's very scary. I have an app on my phone that, I even plugged in today that they can find me. And they do blood and urine. And it's, it's your due diligence to make sure that what you're taking. If I get sick, I can't be taking, any cold and flu shots. I can't take any, steroid packs or anything like that. Like, I had severe bronchitis. I took just the little cough suppressant, and I threw the steroid pack right in the trash. Because I was like, if I take that, because they're like, but Deanna, it's gonna get worse if you don't, or it's gonna take so much longer to get out of it. And I'm like, well, that's it's literally a double-edged sword, but it's very much trying to keep the sport clean.
Sure.
If you get popped, like one of our shot putters, I think it was in 2016, he ended up testing positive for Dianabol, I think it was, which is like, I think, an 80s drug. It's so funny. We were all sitting there, we're like, man, this, like, he didn't look good throwing it, but it went really far. And then he came up positive on that. He got a 4-year ban.
Wow.
And typically, if they're going to set an example, usually it's 4 years. Usually if it's your first time offense, if it's something small, it'll be 2 years. With drug testing, you have a 12-month period that if you miss 3 drug tests, so, like, if I didn't put where I am today, and let's say they show up at my house and I'm not there, I have 1 hour window to hurry up and get there. If I'm not there, it counts as a missed test. So if you miss 3 tests in a 12-month period, that's count as you're done. You get 2-year ban automatically.
Wow.
Yeah, it's keeping it clean, because so many people are, and why would you ever want to ruin your body? Like, oh my God. I sit there and it absolutely terrifies me, because I'm like, if you do this stuff, you're literally messing with your system. And it absolutely, like, there's reasons why some athletes die at a very young age because they are taking things that they shouldn't have been taking.
Yeah, and the pressure is so great at that elite level.
Especially for, like, a lot of people give Russia a hard time, but it's actually their government that is literally sending it to their athletes and saying, you take this or we're not supporting you anymore. We're
That's
not
a great
gonna,
point.
Yeah, we're not going, like, one of my friend is, she's Tatiana as well, because it's a common name. But she is a discus thrower. And she's like, I'm not good enough that they don't send me that stuff. She goes, but I know who they do send it to. She goes, they don't have a choice. Their government says, this is what you take. Like, literally, they just hand them a bag of pills or their shots. And they said, here we go. And they are expected to do it. It's
terrifying from an athletic standpoint.
Yeah,
you know,
like you don't have a choice, like something that you love to do, but you know, and it's ingrained that you know, well, other athletes are doing it, why can't we? Or you know, it's one of those things that you know, it's very terrifying. What they do is they don't compete under their country. What they do is they have to go through extensive testing, and it is you know. So then they'll compete under, like, not their country, but I guess just like a blank. So if they have a really great high jumper, and she's I've never met her, but she's really, really good. And she ended up winning worlds, and she got up there and no national anthem.
No anthem.
Nothing. She just had to compete in her competition gear, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, but I mean, they have like to compete through and all that. It's insane.
But as you said, it's important to keep integrity.
It is very, very important.
Yeah.
You know, because man, I just sit there and it just scares the living crap out of me because I'm like, one, your body is a temple. And if you're putting stuff in it, it's gonna ruin it. It's gonna ruin it. You know, that's why I'm always very much making sure that I'm taking more organic products, making sure that, you know, it's not, I'm going from the seller to me, not going through different cycles or they're getting one product from this one product from here. I'm going straight to the source to make sure that, you know, like what I'm taking, you know, pre-workout or, you know, if I'm doing like a herbal cleanse, that it's all good, it's all clean, and I make sure it has that nice little True Sport check because I want to make sure that whatever I'm putting in my body is good for me.
Sure. Oh, back to Qatar. Were you confident? I mean, in hindsight, it's like, oh, you won gold. You had to. Were you confident going into Qatar that you had a realistic chance to win gold? Like you felt in the lead up that you were throwing well?
I've had that where I was leading up pretty well and fell on my face. So I've had that. So like in London in 2018, I think it was World. It was World something. It wasn't World Championships, but it was another thing that they just started, and it was me going against Anita and a couple of the other girls. And that day, I caught bronchitis. That week, we lost the house that we wanted, and then my grandpa died an hour before competition. And I remember going from literally it was last meet, I went 78-12. First throw, foul. Second throw, foul. Out the left side, about 75 meters. Third throw, hit the cage, went 64.
Wow.
That I made in this meet, you only got 4 throws. Last throw, 73, but skimmed the top of the ring, foul. That sucked.
Yeah,
so like I always say, it's who comes that day at that moment is the most prepared. So when I was in Doha, you know, I was ready to do something and I know I could. You know, we kept practicing. We made sure, you know, we figured out when was the qualifying, when was the final, and we did it, and we did it again, we did it again, we did it again. First 3 throws in qualifying, we made sure the first 2 was over the qualifying standard. Then we hurry up, we did our lift that night, then we went and we did a mock meet throw that next day. You know, we made sure that we were in tune to do this right. And it was the best thing that we ever did, because I mean, we made sure that we put cones out there. We're like, okay, that's bronze, this is silver, this is gold. You have to beat that. And every single time, like I would just get a little bit better each week. So I had about 2 months of working on that. And I just kept honing in on it, making sure that everything was perfect, making sure that I can compete. We closed the gate even tighter than what it is regulation size. So if I can get through that, I knew that I can get through anything that they threw at me at Doha, because sometimes the wind's blowing and the net comes in even farther. It's different circumstances and us kind of preparing mentally for whatever we were going to be dealt that day. And so I remember, like, my husband goes, if you throw 76 meters, you will medal. What position it is, we don't know. But you will medal if you throw 76. So my opening throw being 76.87, I remember instantly wanting to cry. And I was like, hold your stuff together, Price. It's like, you got to hold it together.
Where did you throw in the lineup of women?
I was second thrower.
Okay.
If I remember. It was second or third of the final that I was. I was the second thrower in the qualifying round, and I think I was the third thrower in the final. And then I got reordered to be last. So that's one thing now that we have to work on, because we kind of realized that. So my first throw was 76.87. Second throw was a foul. I was going after it. Third throw, 77. I think it was 50 something. 77, 50 something. And I remember, because then I'm waiting, because I was the third thrower, I had to wait about 10 to 15 minutes till the end of the throw. And then I got reordered. And so then you had to wait another 5 to 6. And then I had to wait another 15 before I threw my fourth round throw.
And going into that fourth throw, did you know, were you in the lead?
I was in the lead, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in the lead. I won off my first throw. I had the closest mark from there was 76.50, I think, or 76.30 from Joanna. And that was her opening throw as well. And but my third round throw was 77.50 something. And I remember, like, just getting in there, and I was like, on my fourth round throw, I hit it. I was like, okay, that wasn't bad. I only went 74. I was like, oh crap, I got cold. So I'm sitting there, I'm like running, I'm trying to like hurry, I'm trying to warm up. And then my third round only went 73. I mean, my fifth round only went 73. And I was like, Deanna. So luckily, that's one thing that we are definitely going to have to prepare for to get ready for Tokyo 2020 is like, all right, we're going to have to get used to that, because that didn't work out so great.
What's the feeling like, though? I mean, so few people get to experience it. You're on the podium. Mm-hmm. You know you've won gold. They're playing the national anthem. You're in a stadium full of people. Like, explain to us, because almost everyone who's listening to this will never get that moment. I mean, how is?
Like I've said earlier, it's honestly, man, when you get up there, and when it's at the very top of the arena. One, I'm a little bit terrified of heights. It was very high. I was absolutely scared. And, but being up there, it was all lit up. And I remember looking out, and when I heard my national anthem, I instantly started crying, because to me, it was like, we finally did it. We finally did this, that I can finally say thank you. I've had so many people support me, throughout this whole experience, and to finally be able to bring home a medal for my country. To finally be able to say thank you to every single person who's finally did something for me. The negative and the positive, that you shaped me so I can do this, that this gave me this chance to finally bring this home to my people. And when I heard that national anthem, it just came strolling down my face, because it meant everything.
And it's going to live with you forever. I mean, that's a moment I'm sure you can close your eyes and still picture as it was yesterday.
I just stood up there, and it was just, like I said, when you're up there at the top, I didn't feel alone. And I've had friends who've won world championships and Olympic games who, basically cut so many people out of their lives, and that they were just doing it for themselves, that they felt so alone. But when I was up there, I could feel everyone. I could feel just this warming sensation of just pure energy from my family, my friends, just knowing that, we did this together.
And so that's done. You're world champion. But immediately I imagine the turnaround times, like now you're gearing up for 2020 in Japan. And
I had about 2 weeks off, but those 2 weeks they had me flying to like LA, Florida, New York, doing photo shoots, doing since I won World Championships, that got me an automatic bid for 2021. So that is the first time since the World Championships started. I believe it was in 1989, I believe, and the first time it will ever be in the United States.
We're at in the U.S.?
Eugene, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're like rebuilding it, everything for 2021.
Okay.
But it's going to be great because it's going to be done and completed for 2020 Olympic trials.
I noticed that was where the trials were. June 19th through June 28th
Yes.
is the length of the trials.
Yep. I will be competing that Wednesday. It is considered the day off. It's one day. It's whoever places top 3. That's it.
So how many American women will be competing at that Olympic trial?
Usually around 30 women.
And only 3 go through?
Only 3.
Okay.
It's only that day.
That day. So like
that day. So I
4 years of work for a day.
For one day. It is the most fair and unfair system. It is. That's why I always say, it could be that one moment that something goes wrong, that, your back spasms, or, you just can't feel that ball, or, that's why I always say you make sure that when you get in there, you go and you do your job, because that is what you're there for. You have that one day, that one moment, that one throw that you have to get out there and make sure that you make that final and make that team. It's not about, who wins that day. It's about who's going to be that top 3.
Yeah. And so I think with a lot of Olympic sports, you often look at like gymnastics and stuff. And by like 2021, that's the end of your Olympic life cycle. So you're 26. Yeah. I noticed Anita from Poland is 34. So she's obviously still competing at a high level. Yes. Is hammer throw a sport you can theoretically
you can
compete
definitely last a longer time in track and field for hammer throwing. Even some of the sprints and jumps. The whole name of the game is how can you keep your body as healthy as you can for a long period of time. And honestly, for me personally, I'm aiming for 2020, and then I'm going to be aiming for 2024. And then my husband's like, LA is in 2028. I was like, I think I'll be like 35, 36 years old. I don't think I can keep up with the intensity of what I'm doing at 36. But, we take each day for what we have. We make sure that every moment that we're doing this, that we're doing it correctly. And, if something happens, we realign our plan. And we make sure, there's times that, last year definitely was really hard for me because I was injured, and, I went from throwing 77 meters in January to going all the way down to couldn't even break over 70. I was having a very hard, or I'd hit one at 70 and it would drop to 63, 62, which is ridiculous. Like, I don't do that. And we couldn't figure it out. And I remember I was having a really hard time answering my 3 questions because to me, I was like, man, if I can't perform at this level, I don't want to be one of those athletes that, does really well and then boop, gone, or like, man, why is she still throwing kind of thing. So me and my husband we were trying to do anything. We were going to doctors, we were getting x-rays, MRIs, and luckily we found a gentleman who used to be a hammer thrower whose name is Brian Murr, and he was like, hey, I got you, don't worry, come here. And the first time he worked on me, I went 75 in 2 days. And then the second time he worked on me, I went 77-49. And then I actually, he came out and flew out to Des Moines, Iowa, and paid for his hotel and everything, got him there, and to make sure that, like he was just killing it. He worked on me, and I went 78-24. He definitely was a huge part of my life of why I threw so well. And, between JC's training and then him just basically, he's like, I'm holding you together with baling wire and duct tape. So he's like, so I go and I see him about every 2 weeks, and he just puts me back together. Is
80 meters the goal? Like from up?
This year, it's 80 meters. Okay. Honestly, goal is 80 meters this year to 81, and then the following year world record. That is honestly something that I think is very attainable, especially with my strength levels and with JC's really focusing on technique work. I feel like I could have been over 80 this year if I didn't get injured. If I was able to keep my form from 2018, but my strength levels from this year, I think easily 80 meters was in the cards. But, that's the name of the game, staying healthy.
Yeah.
And, it's just my body was like, nope, not working today. So very fortunate that, JC and Brian and family, and I had so much support. Robert Chapman from, USATF, they all really band together to make sure that everything was all right. And anytime I traveled, anything over 7 to 8 hours, I was buying my own ticket to go and to be upgraded to, more leg room or even to business class. Cause I was like, I cannot afford to get hurt or being in a bad position and having something go wrong. So, it was worth it. It paid off. So I'm definitely excited about this year, and I'm hoping to, bring home that medal again.
Well, we're all supporting you for 2020. You've got everybody in St. Louis excited for it. A couple of fan questions that we got that I want to ask.
These. Yay, I'm so excited.
First one is favorite location or like an arena that you've ever been. Do you have like the best place?
That one's hard. Okay, so the best place that I like to compete is there's 3 places that I love to throw at. Number 1, I always love throwing at Eugene, Oregon. I love Eugene, Oregon. It's Tracktown, USA for a reason. They didn't think many people would show up to the Olympic trials for us, and it filled up the whole entire left side of the stadium. It's an open free day. Come and watch. It is crazy, and it's so much fun, and it's just such a high energy, and they throw it on Hayward Field in the middle of the stadium. And it was the first time ever. It was great. I absolutely love it. I love competing there. Second one that I love throwing at is Des Moines, Iowa. I really like that ring. It's quick. It's fast. I like fast rings. Third one would probably be Ironwood's throwing ring in Idaho. It is fast. It is quick. I love it. And then, I also love Bloomington, Indiana's rings. So I was like, I like a little bit faster rings just because you can really just speed it in and then really accelerate through the throw.
What defines a fast ring?
So just having a little bit more of a slicker surface. Some people try to like acid wash it and it becomes very rough and very gritty. And when you do that, you have to make sure that every single turn is perfect. With a little bit faster, you can get away with a little bit more.
Okay.
With gritty rings, you have to sit there and think, grind on every single turn. Because if you don't turn perfect or do or go far enough on your turn and it just kind of stops, you're going to flop into the next one and you're not going to hit that good balance. So a lot of times on like heavy, the roughest ring I've ever been on was in Hungary. It was Zambate, Hungary, and it was rough to the point where my right foot was on fire. It just felt like it was just all that traction. And, it was terrible. But I still won, and I threw far.
So that's the least favorite arena?
That one's probably my least favorite ring because of how rough it was. But it was kind of crazy because the ring that they usually throw out of for like practice is more open. It's their practice one, and it's slick and it's fast. But their competition one, since it's regulated cages on that, not a lot of kids throw on it, so it's a lot rougher. And he told me, he's like, I'm glad you threw, because I broke the meet record. I went 74.80, and I think the closest girl behind me was 70 meters, and those girls throw like 74, 75. So, and I was like, man, I'm about 4 meters down because I felt like I could really throw something far that day. And I was definitely just like, all right, well, you now learn what you need to do and how to do it. So thankfully I brought a brand new shoe with me, and I threw on a fast shoe, and I was like, just grind as hard as you can. And it went out there. So I was like, oh, thank God.
Final question I've got is, coolest or most humbling experience you've had as an athlete? Maybe like a fan interaction, or just do you have like the moment that you remember or use and draw upon for inspiration?
So the most humbling moment, Man. For me, I think, I'm never at that point where, and I hope that I never am, like a cocky athlete or thinking that I'm above somebody else. It's always, you never know who's going to be better than you. You never know who's going to outthrow you that day. And that's one thing that I really appreciate my parents is that they always drove into me that, everybody is doing the exact same thing, trying to better themselves. And I remember, when I was younger, it wasn't in track and field, but it was in basketball. I remember, coming from a really hot streak. I did great, and I was walking around thinking I was all that. I remember my mom grabbing me. She goes, Deanna Marie Price, don't you dare ever act like that again. She goes, you will be classy and you will be a good athlete. You can be both. You do not have to be somebody who is cocky or think that they're better than them. She goes, because even though that girl over there did not do well, she's still trying to better herself, just like you're trying to better yourself. She goes, it's always a moment that you're trying to grow in the sport. And she goes, and how you grow is by supporting each other. And she goes, it's either you be humble and kind. She goes, it's just one of those things that people will be more accepting of that versus if you come in cocky and think that you're the greatest thing in the world. She goes, people are going to hate you. And she goes, and I know you. She goes, and you will crumble because she goes, I know you love people. So she's like, so I was like, don't worry about, I'll be humble and kind, I promise. So,
and you've remembered that forever.
Forever. Yeah. Mom and dad have always just, man, they just life lessons that right back to back. Like they are just killing it in the game. And, like I said, I have the greatest support system because, man, I couldn't imagine doing what I do without them. There was moments that, I pretend to be sick because I just didn't want to go to practice. And Mom's like, well, you signed up for this. We're doing it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get out of this because you just don't want to go. You're going to do it because you signed up. She goes, if you want to quit, you quit at the end of season. She goes, not before or during because the team's relying on you to be there. Like, get in there and let's go.
And now it's instilled in you, and you get to pass that on to the next generation of young throwers, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's like if you everybody, it was really funny because I guess one time it was at a competition, and I came up and my name was on there, Deanna Price, 7812, and one of the girls were like, "Oh my god!" And I guess they didn't know who I was. I just walked up. I was like, hey, guys, how you doing? And I guess they thought I was somebody else. And they're like, oh, we're good. And we're all talking. And they're like, do you know, Deanna Price is going to be here? And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, she's going to be here. Yeah. I just sit there. I was like, because I was just like, I'll just let them figure out when they call my name. And they're like, Deanna Price. And I walk up. They're like, you're Deanna Price? I was like, hi. They're like, you're so nice. And I was like, thank you. I appreciate that.
Did their faces, I can imagine their faces were like.
They're all like, what? And I get a lot of, people get a little weird. Like, they're like, they can't believe it, I guess. Because I'll just come up and I'll just hug them. Or I'll just be like, hi, how are you? And they're like, what is happening? I always find it kind of funny because they just kind of don't expect that.
Sure.
And, like my mom said, every person is just trying to better themselves for what they're doing. They might not be the most talented or they could be the most talented, but different situations. You don't know what people's choices were and how they had to choose them. She's like, she goes, you treat everyone as equals. And that's one thing I absolutely love and that I'll always carry with.
You definitely set a wonderful example as a role model for women and athletes. And so it's really cool to see. So on behalf of everybody here, we are so thankful that you took some time to spend with us today.
I'm very grateful for you guys having me. So,
it's been a blast. We'll all be wishing you luck in 2020. Oh, we've got one more fan question. Favorite sport to watch? Do you have a go-to sport?
So this one's hard. Because I'm a huge fan of softball, of course. Okay. But probably my favorite, if I'm talking about Olympic. Okay, Cardinals game, I will be there. I love Cardinals games. So if anyone has free tickets, send them my way. Love the Cards. I've never been to a Blues game. I've always wanted to go. I've always wanted to
Never?
go. I've never been to a Blues game. I've always wanted. I just never had the time or opportunity to. So, I'd love to watch because I feel like that's really it's finesse. It's so beautiful on ice, and then that power. It's really cool. I feel like it's a lot like hammer throwing. But my favorite Olympic sport to watch is probably going to be the gymnasts. I love how, especially Simone Biles. Okay, she's completely amazing, and she's just this little tiny powerhouse. She I hugged her in 2016, and she literally came up to my chest, very tiny, very very petite, but she is a powerhouse of amazingness. Just so cool, and even the women's soccer team, holy crap, honestly, if you stick me in anywhere. I'm not allowed to watch sports because I get too emotionally attached. Hence, I'm going to bring this back to the, I think it was, oh my gosh. It was the Falcons versus the Patriots. All right. So the Falcons won my heart. I never watched football the whole entire season because, I know me. I remember sitting there with my husband and we were watching commercials, and it was the deaf, I believe, quarterback, or it was one of the deaf players, and he signs, and it stole my heart. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is a great story. I'm so excited to watch this. And they were winning, and I'm so pumped up. And then the Patriots started making a comeback, and it kept getting worse. And then my husband kept saying, Manny Magic, Manny Magic. And then next thing you know, I'm in the corner just crying my eyes out, hyperventilating. Mind you, have not watched a game this whole entire season, but literally just bawling my eyes out, super upset. And my husband looked at me and goes, yeah, we're not going to watch any more games. I just get too emotionally invested watching other people. I just get so nervous. Whenever we won the 2011 Cardinals game, I literally just sat outside my dorm, just everyone's watching it. I'm just sitting out there. And because I have a theory that is anytime I did watch, the people who I wanted to win lost. It never failed. So I literally was nope. I'm just going to sit.
It's a good thing you haven't gotten into the Blues yet, so we can win the cup and get that out of the way.
Trust me. When the Blues were, I was watching the results. Anytime I started, I pulled up the results. They started losing. So I just nope. Don't tell me when they're playing. Don't tell. I was tell me when. I was I'm not dealing with this. I'm not putting my negative. I don't know why. I have good energy, but for some reason when I watch other sports, it does not work out well.
So we'll pick a game to have you go to a Blues game when it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yes, yeah. I was don't put me any Stanley Cup. I will not be there. I was for the sake of the Blues fans, I will do that, and I will take that sacrifice. Put me on a game that
Well, great question, Dan. Dan, our producer, brought that one over.
That's good.
Yeah. That will do it for us. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you like what you heard, please go find us wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. We will see you later.
See ya. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.